Come on, Riaz. We've got all day. That's better. Right, how's that? Good? Okay. Road closed. Run east.
British construction men at work in the middle of a violent revolution.
No, hold on. On your way. No. Riaz, pull that stone back. Riaz.
5,000 miles from home, with next to no contact with the outside world, they're trying to safeguard their company's £100 million road contract in a remote corner of Iran.
What? It's all right. Another load there. And the 980 can eventually go and find some boulders and put them down there. I think they've got the message.
The road contract is the jewel in the crown for Marples Ridgeway, part of the Bath and Portland group. And at the height of the crisis in Iran, anxious executives were struggling to keep in touch with their men in the field. The chairman of Bath and Portland demanded regular briefings on the crisis. What sort of evacuation had his senior executives arranged?
It's been very helpful to us.
Indeed he has.
He managed to arrange control tower facilities, and the plane came in, and as we'd got a plane, we decided the wives and children ought to leave.
In the end, Marples Ridgeway evacuated almost 100 British staff, all the wives and children, and sent home 800 Pakistani workers. To back up the mothball team left behind in Iran, a decision is taken to send out key relief personnel. An electrician, a vehicle fitter and a quarry charge hand arrive at a snowy Heathrow. They were carrying with them the first mail to be sent out in nearly 2 months. It will take Brian Croswell, Stan Hurd and George Whiteley 10 days to get to work in Iran. They cannot travel direct to the project because of all the mayhem in Tehran. The only way in is through neighbouring Pakistan, first by air to Karachi and then a 24-hour train journey to the hill station of Quetta. The next 400 miles to the Iranian border have to be covered by road. And that will take a further 20 gruelling hours by Pakistani country bus. Iran's land frontiers and airports were closed following the Shah's overthrow, and for weeks there was little movement in this usually bustling border village of Taftan. The only option for the Marples Ridgeway men was to kick their heels in the bazaars of Quetta, while the company tried to negotiate with Iran's new revolutionary authorities.
Sugar cane? The original stuff. Anyway, George.
And the problem with the prolonged negotiations was that no one knew who had the authority to open the border. Was it government officials or rival Islamic committees? It took 5 days of inactivity before a hand-carried message reached Quetta telling the men that it would be safe to take the bus to the border. In Iran, communication between the construction camps is maintained by daily Land Rover runs. Even when there were no troubles, telephone and radio links were often so poor as to be useless. Now the men are even more dependent on this Land Rover run. But the letters from home have finally reached their destination. Camp C, the most remote of Marples Ridgeway's outposts. Dr. Gordon Burton, plant manager and the camp boss, takes charge of this morale-boosting exercise.
Right, gentlemen, mail. Ah, it's for me. Bill? Right, you do the Pakistan.
For some of the men, it's the first contact with home since Christmas.
Wickham Singh? Bill? Khalid, one for you.
Yes, thank you.
Another one for me.
And even pay of £9,000 a year and upwards is not compensation for all the deprivations of camp life in Iran.
Mark?
Miss Vikram Singh. Thank you.
Chris Nuttall?
Another one.
That's actually your bar bill.
After their own tough journey from England, the three technicians were soon back to work in the new Iran. George, the electrician, was inspecting the Camp C generators. And Stan was on duty in the workshop. Only Brian was delayed a little longer by a stomach bug known in the camps as the Shah's revenge. What the men found on their return illustrated the grim impact of the Iran crisis on British business. This camp housed 400 men. Now, like 4 others, it's closed. There were 130 British expatriates here before the Troubles, and their families supported a lively junior school. Now the women and children have been evacuated, and the school never reopened after the Christmas holidays. Worst of all for the company, 1,000 pieces of machinery now stand idle. Supply problems and Iran's failure to meet its £2 million a month payments to the company have led to the suspension of work. In plant and spares alone, Marples Ridgeway have £17 million tied up in Iran. And it's not earning a penny. 300 vehicles are steadily deteriorating in the harsh desert climate. Plant that is too heavy to move, like this asphalt and quarrying complex, stands silent, a British monument to the turmoil in Iran. And this is what it's all about. 190 miles of blacktop highway through the arid wastes of Iranian Baluchistan. It's the final link in a chain from Tehran, the Iranian capital, 1,000 miles away, to the Pakistan border. "50 of the 190 miles are complete, providing Iran's poorest province with one of the finest highways in the country. The contract to build the highway is worth more than £100 million to Marples Ridgeway. It's thought to be the largest road contract ever won by a British firm. This road was pushed through the mountains by the British Army during World War II. When the Shah ordered its replacement, he also had the politics of the region in mind. For this is Iran's wildest frontier, and until now the country has been cut in two whenever floods wash away the road in these remote valleys. The new highway, the Shah reasoned, would bind the tribesmen of Baluchistan to his imperial throne. The new road was 2/3 complete when the work stopped. The tiny force of Marples Ridgeway men left behind spends much of its time protecting the unfinished mountain sector of the highway. Gordon Burton explains how they spend their time.
Well, we're doing no productive work at all. We haven't done for some weeks. All we're trying to do at this end of the job is keep an eye on the road to make sure that nothing drastic happens to the work, and for that matter to the people, of course, who are using it. And this is why we keep on patrolling it every other day, to make sure that all the road blocks we have installed are functional and that the locals are keeping off.
With productive work at a standstill, Gordon Burton and his men can afford to mix work and pleasure. Relaxed picnics in the hills are one way of safeguarding a road.
I think, quite honestly, that morale is high now because we're a team now. We know each other much more than we did before. And we sort of live out of each other's pockets, you know. And we're very close.
I think the ones that left with the evacuation regret, leaving at that time. As if they realise now that there aren't the problems they first thought. And as you can see, it's very, very peaceful.
Very peaceful.
But you all intend to return despite the difficulties here?
We're all very optimistic that the job's going to start again.
I've been trying to get rid of these lads for ages. I can't.
We're all you've got left.
Yeah. No.
But obviously it's going to be a lot harder for us if it's going to become an Islamic republic.
Yes.
Why, Chris? Why?
Well, this for instance.
That's all he's here for.
No problem. Now, another thing you could do...
Despite that background, Marples Ridgeway's approach to some of the locals is proving effective.
I do not want any of the army in Camp C. I don't want tanks. I don't want APCs. I don't want guns, army guns, in Camp C. I don't like heavy machine guns pointed at people working for Marples Ridgeway.
The locals are exactly the same as ever, but the only difference is that they're now sporting sidearms and small arms in general.
That must be a little concerning to you, or not?
Well, I think for people who've never actually come across firearms before, it can be a bit upsetting. I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea when you find that half a dozen heavily armed gendarmes walk into the bar at night demanding a Coca-Cola.
Those British businessmen who stayed behind in Iran have in the last few weeks had to become diplomats and politicians. Peter Sunderland, the Marples Ridgeway project manager, has an office in the provincial capital of Zahedan. His journey there each day takes him out of the world of British civil engineering into the world of Muslim politics. Until recently in Zahedan, he dealt with the Shah's Governor-General, who could always be relied upon to help. Now the town is in the hands of shadowy Islamic revolutionaries, and no one can be quite sure how long they will last.
Salam.
Marples men are cheerfully saluted as they pass through Islamic militia roadblocks, but there is still no firm word here in Zahedan as to when or even if the company will be allowed to start work again.
The Iranian Revolution has been very, very swift, and things have changed very rapidly, even in Zahedan. We have spent some three years out here finding out who to deal with for every matter, and have been fairly successful in that. We're now really having to start again on this particular line, and at the moment, most of the decisions, which would previously have been covered by the normal administrative departments of the government, have got to be referred to the Revolutionary Council.
Things seem to be fairly quiet here in Zahedan. What needs to happen before you can resume the work?
To restart, we have to, first of all, have money to pay off some of the debts that we owe, and also we need money to restart the supplies coming in again. One has got to have money to get cement and bitumen starting, and indeed to enable the people to come back.
While company executives wait and hope for the money to restart the job, the mothball teams in the construction camps batten down the hatches. £17 million worth of plant and spares must be protected, and the few foreigners left in the camps must also be shielded from the curious and the hostile. Behind the ramparts which these bulldozers are building, British ingenuity has its triumphs. When the cooking gas ran out and bread was in short supply, Mark Riding stumbled on a folksy solution.
I was offered this oven for 400 reals, that's about £2.80, and so I thought it was a bit of a bargain. Came back to the camp to see the boss, see if I could buy it, and he said, he was swimming in the pool at the time, said, fine, yes, 400 reals, I think I can knock that down a bit. So we went down to the village to barter a bit, and he haggled with the locals for about half an hour. The price was eventually increased by about 50%, And then, of course, we had to buy the man to go with it as well. But it's the genuine article which the Baluchis and Pakistanis here prefer.
Well, it's not very good, the battery. We've got to know there's a new one over there. We'll charge it up, put it on, see if we can make it a bit better.
While most of the heavy plant stands idle in the desert waiting for hundreds of Pakistani technicians to be allowed to return, expatriates keep their hand in by getting personal transport on the move.
Before we get on to the pickups.
We need a few. We need about a dozen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right, Finny, finish this one off. We'll see if we can get another couple ready for tomorrow. We'll get this out of the way. Fair enough.
We'll need the Mac. We'll need a 27 dump truck, plus the lads to go with it, up to 135.
Yes, no problem.
We'll go and seal the road. Well and truly this time.
Yes.
Oh, God. Ah! Iranian Khan! Salak here. Hey? Hello, Got the artillery with you, eh?
And as double insurance against an uncertain future, Gordon Burton is cultivating the local Baluch strongman.
Khalid.
Whoever may be running Iran in future, Sardar Aryan Khan and his men have promised that if the need arises, they will escort British expatriates to safety in Pakistan, ignoring border officialdom if necessary.
Which cameraman?
The Marples Ridgeway Desert team merits its moment of glory. While other British firms have pulled out of Iran, they at least have kept their show on the road.
It's a good day.
Yet it's still quite possible that all their efforts will be wasted. Back in England, I first of all asked Sir Kenneth Selby, the company chairman, how much they were owed by the Iranian government.
Since December, virtually payments from Iran have ceased, although there were two modest payments that came along in the month of February.
And we're talking, therefore, around the 10 million mark, something of that order.
Oh, yes. You are talking, in fact, something in the region, possibly, of something like £18 million.
Have you actually had to rely, as yet, on your insurers, or is that something that is under consideration now?
Oh, no. The situation is that we have stated in our accounts to the 31st of October that our assets in Iran total some £37 million. But in this particular field, our insurers have come along and assisted us with funds by way of guaranteeing our bank overdrafts to overcome the present situation.
So Sir Kenneth Selby and his shareholders can sleep at night in the knowledge that they will avoid a £37 million catastrophe.
Claims are on.
But someone might still have to pay. Marples Ridgeway is insured not by private insurers, but by a government body, the Export Credits Guarantee Department.
We anticipate that we will be faced with reasonably substantial claims payments, though hopefully we will recover the money in due course, or a substantial part of it.
But you're a government department. If you sustain big losses, who really pays? Does the taxpayer foot the bill?
We charge a premium to exporters for the insurance cover that we give. The claims payments come from the reserves which we have accumulated over the years, and therefore we operate, and we aim to operate, on a break-even basis, not calling on the taxpayer at all.
Simply because the sums involved are not that large, or you're just hopeful about the situation in Iran?
Well, a blend of both, plus the fact that we have fairly substantial reserves that we can use to meet claims as they come up.
So Iran might represent a disaster area as far as British business is concerned at the moment, but not in terms of your own work?
No, it will represent a serious problem for us. But it won't represent a disaster which will send ECGD crashing into insolvency.
The ECGD has commitments of almost £1,000 million in Iran, and their total reserves are less than half that. If the worst happened, then clearly the taxpayer would be asked to pay up. Yet despite the dangers, the department is confident that a disaster will be avoided in Iran. And obviously, if we are to survive as a top trading nation, then the government must underwrite projects like the Marples Ridgeway Road.
Look, you have to turn around and go back.
It's thanks to the tenacity of Gordon Burton and his men that the risks for the ECGD and the taxpayer have been minimised. Marples Ridgeway have never failed to finish a contract, and they don't intend to start now.
That stays there.
Their success, or failure, will be a pointer to the whole future prospects for British business in Iran. Britain was only just beginning to turn the corner in its trading relations with Iran. Only last year did we earn more from Iran than we spent in buying Iranian oil. Now all that's changed. Our commercial sponsor in Iran, the Shah himself, has been overthrown, and his country, our biggest market in the Middle East, is in serious disorder. Like other unfinished projects in Iran, this road represents a huge investment in manpower and plant. And unlike many other British companies, Marples Ridgeway is doing its damnedest to hang on, because Iran at least has the means to offer British companies other lucrative contracts. But as yet, there is absolutely no guarantee that the business will return.